Hey guys, so I'm gonna try my first take on making tallow. We were able to find some of this beet fat at our local market. So now I'm just going to trim it up, throw it in the pot, and start rendering. So from what I've been researching, the smaller pieces are better. So I'm gonna work on getting some really nice small pieces so that it can melt down a little bit easier. Just me getting some experience making tallow. It's something that I use personally as my chapstick and my face cream, and I absolutely love it. So I just want to learn how to make it, and then next time I'll go to a local butcher, most likely in Arizona by our property, and get organic grass-fed beef fat that I can then make my own soap and face lotion and hopefully some chopsticks, because I really like the chopsticks. But I'm gonna go ahead and trim some of these. These pieces I actually think are pretty good. It's got some decent fat on it. So I'm gonna trim these up, throw everything in the pot, and start rendering. Now in my pot, I already got some water. So I'm just gonna stick this in there and get it on the stove. So I decided to change it to the crock pot instead of the pot on the stove. It's a little over an hour, and we still got some chunks, but you can start to see the fat breaking down and more oil in the water. Hopefully this works. Okay, so this has probably been rendering for 2 days now, and I still have got some pretty solid chunks in there. I'm not exactly sure if it's because this is just a store-bought, non-organic beef fat, or what. This is my first time, so maybe I'm doing something wrong. But I'm gonna go ahead and strain it now and let it sit in the refrigerator overnight and harden, and so that tomorrow I can do the second rendering and hopefully it's usable. it is hot, so I don't want to burn myself. Just gonna squeeze to get as much of the liquid out of the cheesecloth as possible. I'm just gonna leave it at that. It does look like there's still quite a bit of water in there, but again, this is my first time, so kind of just experimenting. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the refrigerator, let it sit overnight, and I'll check back in with this. Okay, so it's the next day. I took my rendered tallow out of the refrigerator. As you can see, I only have a very small amount that's useful. So this beef fat that I got wasn't very good for tallow making, but that's okay. It's an experiment. So I'm gonna separate this and just take this top layer and put it back in the crock pot and let it melt down with a little bit of water, clean it out some more. What I did get though does look pretty nice and pure. All white. There isn't any like residue on the bottom of it. So we'll go ahead and get this simmering in for today. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pour the rendered tallow into the filter again and then let it sit. And then I'll clean it up, melt it down one more time before I put it into a jar. But this is hot, so I'm gonna grab some. Okay. This is a lot clearer and cleaner than the first time. Everything looks really good. Take this out. It's a lot clearer. I don't see any chunks or anything in it. I'm just gonna go ahead and give this a little squeeze. And there we go. Now I'll let this sit again and harden and make sure I've got all the water and impurities out before I melt it down one last time to jar it. Okay, so this is what it looks like after the second rendering. You can see at the bottom there was still some stuff that needed to be separated. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this top part off and put it in a pot and melt it down, and then I'm going to put it into a can so I can save it for cooking later. Looks pretty good, nice and clean and white. Again, this was my first time doing this, so kind of just experimenting. But this actually looks really good. I think what's left in here was kind of the water that I added to help clean it out a little bit more. I'm just gonna let that cook on low for a little bit, let it melt down, and then I'm gonna put it in a jar to use later. Okay, so I'm melting it down. I'm noticing that there's still some water in it. You can see the bubbles at the bottom. So I'm gonna let it sit here and cook out some of that water before I jar it. So this is what I got. A little bit over a half of a jar. I believe these jars are only like 12 ounces. But it was my first time. If anybody has any tips or tricks or do's or don'ts about making tallow, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. It was a fun experience and now I can't wait to use it for cooking. Thanks guys.